Welcome back to A Game of Fangs and Thrones. My name's Hannah, and this is just a weekly catch up. I mean, I have been wanting to film for a while now. I just don't know what to film. So, this is what we're going to do. This is going to be just like a little sit down, chatty catch up with me. What's been happening in the week. I'll talk about writing, the reading, and anything else that has came up. So first things first, yes, my bookcase has changed again. The big TBR cart has gone. I mean, the TBR cart itself is still here. It's just out of shot, but it's no longer holding my TBR. There are a couple of books on there, and they're books that I think I'll probably read and just get rid of. I think I won't be reading this one that I borrowed from my sister on there as well, to keep it separate from the main collection. So I'm sure you've seen people do this before, but this is what I'm doing with it. So the books where you can see the titles, so we have Darwin's Dragons, The Wolf Wilder, the second, third, fourth book of the Dragon Rising series. As you can see those, and we've got Amari just at the bottom. As we can see those titles, those are the ones I have read. Then we have my Victoria Schwab collection, and as you can see, the majority of those you can't see the title, so they are the ones that I haven't read. You've got the last Aurora book just there as well, that's that green one. The next gilded ones is that red one. So yeah, it works for me. It means I've got more space for other crap, basically. And I have discovered that I am a mood reader. So set TBRs aren't really working for me. I don't feel like picking the book out, reading the book that I've picked, and even the mood pick, that changes from day to day. So I'm going to scrap TBRs unless it is a readathon, just because readathons give me the chance to read. I don't know, but basically, as it is January, there are, if you've seen a video you'll know what this is. This is my reading journal, but there are 2 readathons happening at the moment. There is the Great Bookish TBR Off, which is a spin on the Great British Bake Off, and some of the books that I've been reading fit that series, those prompts. So what I'll probably do is just go back at the end of the month and see what fits what, and then the other cozy little readathon where you read 1 book a month for it is the Adventures in Eldia. Now, the Great Bookish TBR Off is hosted by Catherine. I think her channel name is Catherine Reads 94, and the Eldia is tied to Aurelium, so that is G from from Book Roast. But I shall put this down because we don't need it right this second. So as I am filming this installment of this series, collection, whatever you want to call it, it is the 15th of January, and I have read 9 books. Hang on, not 9, 8. I'm reading the 9th. We'll get this back out. So I've read 8 books, and I've only had I've had 2 5 stars so far, but these are, see, my goal is to read 100, but I've got plenty of space if I read more. But we shall go in order of what was finished first. So, first book of the year was the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. Now this was started before New Year and just finished on New Year's Day actually. But I'm sure everybody knows about this one, but I rated it 4 stars. But this basically follows the 6 young adults. I think they're in college, they've graduated college, so they're about 20, 25 maybe. Excuse me. And this is a take on the Alexandrian Library. Now, if you don't know, that is the greatest library in the world, and it was Greek, but when, I can't remember the exact ins and outs of it, but basically when Greece fell, for whatever reason, probably Troy, the Alexandrian Library was lost. So this is a modern day take on what happened if the library was actually saved. But yeah, so this is a take on what would have happened if the library survived. Basically, a secret society called the Alexandrian Society has been created to save the knowledge of the library, and there are 6 initiates. We have Libby and Nico, who know each other prior to being recruited. We have Parisa, Raina, Callum and Tristan. Now, none of these characters are particularly likeable, but you can't help but root for them anyway. I have to say Libby was my favourite. There's just something likeable about her that was missing in the other 5. This it probably has loads of trigger warnings, so just be careful of that going in. But for me, why it dropped a star is because a character who has a big reveal isn't as important as I feel they probably should be. They aren't as present in the beginning of the book, so the reveal kind of just feels a bit out there, a bit thrown in last minute, and it's all very convenient. But 4 stars, and I did enjoy it enough to maybe think about picking up the Atlas Paradox, and I will probably pick up Babel at some point. Then we have my first DNF of the year, and I don't have the book to hand, but I'll probably put a picture up here somewhere, and that is Ghosts of the Shadow Market by Cassandra Clare. And others, I just couldn't get into it. Maybe it's because I didn't really care about the characters that the short stories were about, but it's not something that I was interested in. And I have since gotten rid of all of my Shadowhunter books. I still have the Bane Chronicles to get rid of if anybody is interested. But it just wasn't for me. I think I've grown out of those books, but they're not bad books. They're just not for me anymore, which is a shame. And then we have my first Kindle Unlimited book of the year, which I will, again, should be a picture up here somewhere. And that is Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. This got a 3-star. It was fine. It scratched the itch, and I probably will continue that series just because they're all on Kindle Unlimited. It is breeder kink, and as someone who doesn't want children, that is something that I had to sort of gloss over, but it was funny. Our main character, Georgie, is spunky. Basically, if you don't know, in this series, Georgie is abducted by aliens, as in the actual little green men. And she is sent with some other girls on this spaceship, where they are captives, basically. Oh, trigger warnings for rape. One of the girls is raped by their captor. Not the love interest, but the little green men, so just be wary of that. But then there is a ship malfunction and the girls are jettisoned. There are a couple of girls who are awake and a couple who are in cryostasis and who are asleep and don't know anything. So Georgie is elected to try and find shelter, people, food. And she runs into her alien, whose name I have forgotten, but he immediately senses her as his mate, and it's all very Tarzan. He wakes her up by basically giving her a blowjob. And that was funny, but it just wasn't my favourite. So it got 3 stars. Then we have the first 5-star of the year, but this is cheating because it is a reread, and that is Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I'm in my middle grade era. But we have this, and this is the first of the series, and it follows Morrigan Crow, who, as a cursed child, is destined to die on her 11th birthday. And in her village, basically anything that goes wrong, she is blamed for, whether it's her fault or not. And she has become a little bit withdrawn, and the book's alive. A little bit withdrawn, a little bit she's pessimistic basically. And on her 11th birthday, or just before, she is whisked away to the mysterious Wonder Society by Jupiter North, and Jupiter North does things semi-legally. In the town where Morrigan is from, there is a thing called Bid Day, and basically wealthy what's the word I'm looking for? It's not the parents, but it's employers, school teachers, anybody who wishes to take on an apprentice will bid on these children for the chance for them to be theirs, basically. Morrigan doesn't expect much. She's only there because she just wants to see what's going on, and she gets 4. 2 of these are fake. One is from the most important person in this world, and the other is from Jupiter. So he does it semi-legally. So then Morrigan is whisked away by Jupiter and is entered into the Wonder Society, or Woonsock. And it is so whimsical. It's so fun. So 5 stars. Next book was another Kindle Unlimited, and this also got 3 stars. It was fine. It was just traditional comforting fantasy, and that is Silent Kingdom by Rachel L. Schade. S-C-H-A-D. Schade. And that, I've forgotten half of what that was about already, and I've only recently read it. But basically in that we have a girl, a princess, whose father murdered her uncle the king so he could become king. And the girl, what is her name? I know she goes by Elena, but that's not her name. But she basically is gifted, cursed with telling the truth. And she has visions of what happens. She confronts her father and is tried to be executed basically by the captain of the guard. And she runs away, but she discovers that she is mute. Now that's not actually explained that well, but it was an okay book. I think it was a debut. But it got 3 stars, and I may pick up the rest of the series just to see how it goes, but it's not a priority. Then we have the first in the series. I did not read this whole book. This is a bind-up of the first 3, which is why I have the sticky tabs here. But this is the first 3 books of The Order of Darkness by Philip Gregory. Volume 1 is Changeling, and this follows a trainee monk called Luca, who is expelled from his monastery because he figures out basically that the monastery's relic isn't real. and he is recruited by Mr. Stranger, as these things always happen, to record the end of days. Now, he is accompanied by a cleric who we don't really know much about, and his best friend, the kitchen boy. And he was called Freeze, or Fraise. I think it's Fraise because this is set in Rome, Italy. And in their first episode, their first encounter, they meet Isolde and her companion Ishrak. And Isolde has been basically forced to become the abbess of a neighbouring monastery against her will by her brother Posit, who sort of twisted her father's will. But there is that. And in this monastery, the nuns are acting possessed, and they claim that it all started when Isolde took her vows. So that got 4 stars. It was intriguing. I just think it went on a little bit too long, maybe. And we didn't really get to know much of the character, but it was fun, and I am interested in carrying on with that series. It is historical. So, and Philippa Gregory is a love-hate author of mine. Some of her works I absolutely adore. Some of them I think are a bit meh. So, then we have another middle grade, and surprise, surprise, it is another 5-star, and that is Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky by Kwame Mbalia. This focuses on a mix of the African American gods and the African gods, I believe. Now, I can't speak for how authentic it is, because obviously, you know, I'm white British, but I did really enjoy it. I love stories where I get to learn about other cultures, other mythologies, and this, with it being a middle grade, does it in such an accessible way. So we have John Henry, who I didn't know, Hi John, who I didn't know, Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, who I did know a little bit. And it is just a very touching story about Tristan, who is struggling. He witnessed and was present for his best friend Eddie's death in a bus crash, and isn't really dealing with that very well. I mean, in 7th grade, you can't expect him to understand. But he is sent to his grandparents' farm in Alabama to try and, you know, just grieve, a change of scenery, just, you know, try and get his mind off what's been happening, because he also was entered into his first boxing match and lost. And so he is dealing with all sorts of grief and trauma. And so this is a very cute, it is dark in places, don't get me wrong, but it is a very touching story of grief, resilience, and standing up for yourself, being true to what you believe. We also have Anansi, and I am very curious to learn more about Anansi, the spider god. I think he is wicked in both senses of the word. Then the last book I have finished was a 5-star. Oh, I gave Tristan Strong 4 stars. Oh, never mind. There must have just been something when I was reading it that I didn't quite get, which is fine, because obviously these are middle grades and I am not the intended audience for a middle grade. That being said, this is YA and I absolutely adore this series, and that is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This one is volume 4, so I can't talk too much about this one without spoiling the prior ones. But basically we have Nick and Charlie, who become a couple, basically. This one does deal with some mental health issues, because Charlie is diagnosed with an eating disorder. It is handled really well, in my opinion. Again, I'm not on voices, but I think it was handled really well, because it does deal with obviously Charlie's feelings on that and how he is coping and the treatment he receives, as well as Nick learning that he can't fix Charlie, And that's not what Charlie wants from Nick. Charlie just needs that support from Nick. And it's Nick learning to navigate that, as well as some other family drama. But again, 5 stars for that. And I am desperate. I am quietly waiting the last book in that series, that last comic, just because I don't want to leave these boys. They are so sweet and cute, and the way certain issues are handled is very well done, in my opinion. And Alice Oseman has she's very tactful with what she says and what she doesn't. But writing time, I am working on a new story called A Little Piece of Magic. And I've lost, oh, there it is. I had them highlighted upside down and back to front. So the way I write, I do have a Notion, but I'm not using that. I tried it, it just wasn't for me because I am a pantser. I'm pantsing everything I write. I don't really plot. I tend to know what my characters get up to and where they end up, just not how they get there. And that's the fun part for me. But basically, this is A Little Piece of Magic following Riley, who is a witch, and she is dealing with some trauma of her own. She is dealing, and she has successfully escaped a toxic relationship that's left her scarred in more ways than one, and she's learning to cope with that, as well as being on her own outside of her family and her own witch community that she grew up in. So she's learning to deal with that and trying to get back into the social scene of the witches in this new city. When she meets Hunter. Chase and Hunter are brothers. Hunter is the love interest and he is a werewolf. And so he has to learn how to deal with Riley. Riley has to learn to love again, and I am expecting just this to be cute and cuddly. I had the perfect analogy. But it is a little bit Vampire Diaries-esque, but with witches and werewolves instead of vampires. There is elements of the film Daddy's Home, specifically Daddy's Home 2, where they have that blended Christmas, and also a sitcom called Baby Daddy. And now it's not Hunter who's the baby daddy, it's Chase, his brother, which is how Riley and Chase, Riley's roommate is Ivy, and Ivy is best friends with Chase and Hunter because she grew up with them, so she introduces Riley to the boys. So I've got no idea when or if I'm even going to finish this, because I have so many stories that I want to tell but haven't got round to it. So I think that's it. If anybody is interested in seeing what books I'm getting rid of, because they are available for sale, there are some Illumicrate Fairy Loot editions in there, Book Box Club. There's nothing wrong with these books, I just want to say that. I just don't see myself rereading any of them, and if I do, I will probably just get them on Kindle, because I think some of them will be on Kindle Unlimited. But yeah, that I was just putting everything back on the bookshelves when I realised I forgot to tell you what I was currently reading, and that is Zodiac Academy: The Awakening by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. I'm about 39% of the way through. I'm reading it on Kindle so I'm jumping between my phone and my Kindle, whichever I have in my hand, and so far I am enjoying it. Now you can see what I mean about my TBR card being used for something else now. But, which means because I've put it back, I'm squished in this corner now. But I am enjoying it. If you weren't aware, Zodiac Academy follows Tori and Darcy, who are adopted at birth because their parents died in a fire. But on the bed is digging in, I can't get comfy. But just on or around their 18th birthday, they are found by Professor Orion, who basically turns their life upside down and tells them that not only are they Fae, but they are heirs to the Fae throne, and they have to go to Zodiac Academy to learn and get their inheritance. Now, Darcy and Tori don't want to be rulers. They pretty much just want their inheritance to control their powers, to learn to control their powers and be left alone. So it is interesting. The 4 heirs whose families have been ruling Solaria instead of the Vegas, who are the twins, are not exactly savoury characters. We have one who is a vampire and has already bitten Tori without her consent, draining her of not only her blood but her magic. Don't worry, the magic regenerates. So there's that. We have Orion, Professor Orion, who is also a vampire, and he has done the same to another student in class. He bit and drained them without permission, so there is a lot of consent issues going on there. And we also have one of the other heirs who's, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names, but one of the other heirs is a werewolf, or at least I suspect he is a werewolf. He's very touchy-feely, and he is obsessed with being called Alpha, and he is giving off some very toxic Alpha vibes. So there are a few nitpicky things, just little choices that I don't quite understand yet. Whether it's just a creative choice or something else, I'm not quite sure, but it is an enjoyable read for the most part. Don't think it'll be 5 stars, but I'm, like I say, I'm only 30% in or whatever it was. It's still too early to fully say. But yeah, I'm definitely getting back into mood reading. Oh, this is my reading blanket. As you can see, there are 8 rows. Each colour corresponds to a genre. This is other because I could not think of what else to put Atlas 6 under, because it's not fantasy as such. I'd say it's more dark academia, and I didn't have a colour for dark academia. Orange is historical, so we have Changeling and Ghosts of the Shadow Market. Grey is romance, so we have Ice Planet Barbarians and Heartstopper. And then the white is fantasy, which I suspect this blanket will be mostly white. So I think that's actually it this time. It for this video. If you like it, give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you want to see this, talk about these, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.